His Excellency Governor Beckingham and his lovely wife Jill, Honorable Josephine Connolly, Honorable Derek Taylor, and Mrs. Cheryl Ann Jones, and Reverend Mark Christmas. Thank you all for coming, and welcome to our second in a series, An Evening with the Experts. Tonight we explore how and why the museum wants to digitize the fragile, rare, and endangered historical documents we currently hold in our temperature-controlled mini archive. There are so many reasons to digitize these records and make them available to the general public. One example I can think of offhand just happened a few months ago. As many of you know, it was the museum that discovered the record showing over 120 slaves being buried in unmarked graves on Over Island, and alerted the government, who in turn revised the plans to put a donkey sanctuary on the island. As I told one official, these slaves never rested a day in their lives. We need to let them rest now. This is just one example of why taking care of is so important. Recently, we received the baptism, birth, death, and marriage records from Reverend Christmas at the Wesleyan Methodist Church. We are in the process of stabilizing these records and will be digitizing them. We commend Reverend Christmas for entrusting these records to the museum. Once stabilized, they will be on permanent loan in our temperature-controlled room. The wonderful thing about us receiving these records now is that they'll be available eventually to everyone online. The requirement for this grant is that everything that we do digitize must be available online and for free. So this is a first step into making documents available to everyone. There are already some documents available online. The slave records from 1812 to 1834 are on the British Archive site, and I've made informational little leaflets available that you can take with you. As we approach Emancipation Day, saving historical documents should be on everyone's mind. Without having historical documents, the museum could not have found out about the story of the slave ship Troubadour, which wrecked off the shores of the Caicos Islands, and the occupants of this ship were freed. Many Turks and Caicos Islanders are direct descendants of these Africans who gained their freedom on these shores. However, there's much more work to be done, as this grant only covers the 19th century and is limited to a number of documents we can digitize into time and staffing restrictions. As many of you know, one of my passions is to see the Turks and Caicos Islands government open a national archives. We hope tonight to show everyone why this shouldn't be a dream, but a reality. So tonight, it's with great pleasure that I introduce our panel of experts who have come on a British Library Endangered Archives Programme Grant. Dr. Kelley Scudder-Temple, Executive Director of the Florida-based Zemi Foundation. Dr. Michael Pateman, Assistant Director of the Bahamas National Museum. Mr. Michael Temple, IT Specialist for the Zemi Foundation. And Mr. Paul Diamond, Special Projects Coordinator for the Zemi Foundation. After this presentation, you can ask questions, and if anyone would like to see the museum's archive room or the actual work we are doing to digitize, you're welcome to take a tour. Thank you. And I'm going to hand it over. I'll go ahead and start while he finds this. I get the first part down. I know who I am. I'm Dr. Kelley Scudder-Temple, but for those of you here, please just refer to me as Kelly. It's a lot easier. Currently, we're working, as Pat shared with you, on a program through the UK Library. It's an Endangered Archives Program. It was a lengthy process we went through to get this grant, to try to digitize anything we could. This is not a stabilization process, and it's not something where we can cover all the archives. We're hoping to digitize anywhere from 15 to 16,000 individual documents over the course of the next 18 months. But this is just a dent
There are so many more documents that we need to explore and to digitize and to get online for everybody. A little bit about us. The Zemi Foundation is a non-profit foundation based in the United States, and we work primarily throughout the British West Indies on cultural and environmental and heritage conservation programs. So if anybody's interested in our website, we're actually at zemiglobal.org, and you can see some of the work we're doing in other countries. Most of our work has been in the Bahamas as of late, but we hope to continue with this kind of digitization work in other countries. This is what was happening to a lot of the documents here, and this is the fate of many of the archival documents from the Turks and Caicos. It's in a sad state of affairs. And we see this happen in a lot of countries where different departments think other departments are caring for these documents and they get lost in the shuffle. Other things happen. Hurricanes happen, emergencies happen. People are worried about getting food and water, and the conservation of these archives falls by the wayside. We're hoping to prevent this from happening in the future with some of the work that we're doing now. One of the things that has happened is technology, and it's been a very wonderful movement for us with what we're doing now. In the past, some of you have already talked to me about how many of the documents that were here on island at one point in time were saved on microfilm. And for those of you who are over the age of 45 or 50, you remember when this was the way to look up documents. Well, what happens is these degrade over time, and this is what you have to go through to try to do research. And this can be vital to any project, the data in these. And as you can see, they're almost impossible to read. So what we're doing now is something that's very different. This project has very strict guidelines for how we digitize these materials. They're massive files, very large. We can't even email a single file to one another. They're that big. But by doing this with great detail, it will go to the UK, and every single document we have digitized will go online. And you will be able to access them for free. Everyone will. We're also going to leave copies of these hard drives with these documents that we have archived, digitized here on island. And they'll be shared with the churches, individuals. Not only does this allow you to access information that is fading away, but it also preserves these documents. Because once they've been digitized, there really is no rationale for people to handle these. And some of these are so incredibly fragile that it will take us 20 to 30 minutes just to scan one page, which is why this is taking so long. But I think it's worth it. I really feel strongly that this is worth it. I've worked on too many projects where we've encountered burials because nobody knows where anything is. And everyone says, but they're responsible for it. No, they're responsible. Well, in my mind, we're all responsible, and we need to have access to that data. And this has been a passion of ours for years. So understand what we're doing. We'd love to share it with you. If anybody wants to see exactly what we're doing, understand the process, see the documents we're handling, please let us know. And we'd be more than happy to show you the work that we're doing. We'll be here until Tuesday. And when we leave, everything that has been digitized to this date will stay here. Copies will be here, so you'll be able to access them. And we'll continue to try. We're actually going, when we go back to the States, we are trying to digitize some of the microfilm too, so that we can attempt to get a little better resolution. But it's working with the original documents that we get what we really need from this. That's me. This is an example of one of the documents. And today I actually did cry because we pulled up the baptismal records of at least 40 children on this island within a 3-day period. and they were all children of slaves. And for me, those documents and that information is absolutely vital to everyone here, and to all of us. And this is what we get, as opposed to what you saw in the microfilm and microfiche. And because these are such large files, you can print these up and they're legible, and you can share them with students and with family. There's so much you can do with these that you cannot do with the microfiche. And that's not one of our better ones, but this is the one of the children of slaves who were being baptized. But we can manipulate that. You can manipulate it to make it darker. We cannot during the digitization process because we have to keep the integrity of the document. But trust me, once this is darkened up a bit, the ink shows well and you can read everything in great detail. And it's you. And now, Dr. Michael Pateman.